This video is sponsored by PCBWay.
It's not a fun task to get a rocket to balance outside. Even the slightest amount of wind can knock it over.
That's not even mentioning uneven surfaces. And unless you're playing KSP, you don't want to be balancing your rocket on its engine.
And that's why you need a launch pad.
The basic principle is that you glue a little mount to the bottom of your rocket, and then you rest this mount on a little retainer thingy. I don't have a name for it yet.
You might be thinking, oh, well, Cosmosis, why don't you just use a launch rod or launch rail? These two things work by keeping the rocket upright while it gets to speed, and then the fins passively stabilize the rocket. But a thrust vector controlled rocket doesn't have fins, so it's useless to get it up to speed, and it needs to start thrust vectoring the second the motor ignites.
I also don't want to manually ignite the engine, so I'll have a launch computer do that for me. A bunch of you have been recommending that I design a PCB.
I was going to use this little TM1637 clock display for displaying the state the launch computer was in, or displaying the time left until launch. And I'm going to use this MOSFET in a pyro channel that can ignite the engine. Finally, I'm using this Raspberry Pi Pico for the microcontroller on board the computer. Next, I hopped on EasyEDA and I wired up all the components, including some passive components like the pull down and pull up resistors and the resistors used in the voltage divider. I also included 3 terminal blocks, one for the input of the battery, one to bridge, and one for the output of the power channel. Then I routed the traces for everything on the PCB. Then I had to print the circuit board, which was made possible by the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. PCBWay is a PCB printing company based in China. They have standard PCB printing, advanced PCB printing, flexible PCB printing, PCB assembly, and they have 3D printing and CNC. One thing I really like about PCBWay is how beginner friendly it is. As some of you may know, that was my first time designing a PCB, but PCBWay made it very easy to go through the ordering process. All you have to do is enter all these metrics. Even if you don't know what a metric is, you can just hover over this question mark icon and it gives you an explanation of what it does and a recommendation. Getting the physical PCB was made very easy using PCBWay. A couple days later, the PCBs arrived. PCBWay engineers also check your board multiple times throughout the printing process. This ensures a high-quality PCB. So as long as you don't make a mistake during design, the PCB will be perfect.
Like that, the computer was done. It's time to go build the stand.
Thank you guys so much for hitting 250 subscribers. And if you're new here, subscribe so that you don't miss the launch happening sometime this year.
Also, yes, I did paint the launch pad red after I filmed this video.